My name is Claire Martinez, and I'm 38 years old. Half a year ago, I said goodbye to my husband, and both my kids completely alone, while my parents stayed at my sister's celebration instead. When I reached them through tears, sharing the devastating news that David, Lily, and Mason had been taken by a drunk driver, my father's words crushed whatever strength I had left. It's Melissa's special day. We're not leaving. Those 8 words didn't just end our conversation. They ended my lifetime of being their afterthought. What they had no idea about was that David's passing would set in motion something they never anticipated. The $5 million policy was merely the opening act. The true revelation arrived when they saw what I'd created from my devastation, featured on our town newspaper's front page. But let me start from the beginning. Before we dive into this emotional journey, I'd appreciate if you'd like and subscribe, but only if this truly speaks to you. I'd be curious to know your location and what time you're listening. Now let me bring you back to that morning that altered my world forever. It was a Tuesday in early March. David had just finished preparing dinosaur-shaped waffles for Mason, our 6-year-old, while Lily, who was 8, rehearsed her piano piece in the next room. I remember our goodbye kiss at 7:45 that morning. David's coffee-scented breath mixed with cinnamon acid. He murmured, "See you tonight, Claire." Those were the last words I'd ever hear from him. At 8:17 that morning, an 18-wheeler whose driver had been behind the wheel for 16 consecutive hours blew through a red signal at the corner of Oak and 5th. Authorities said David had no opportunity to react. The collision was immediate and total. They assured me later that my family felt nothing, as though that detail could somehow ease my agony. I was meeting with a client when I got the call. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Sergeant Williams from Highway Patrol. There's been a collision." The walls seemed to spin. My colleague's voice became distant, muffled. Somehow I reached the hospital, though I have no memory of the drive. The hallway leading to the morgue seemed infinite, sterile lights buzzing their cold indifference. The identification procedure is something I won't detail here. Some memories shouldn't be transferred to others. I'll simply say this: I had to confirm each one individually. David first, then Lily, then my baby Mason. Each covered form revealed was another fragment of my existence ripped away. The officer's explanation rang empty. There was nothing anyone could have done. The intoxicated driver had survived with barely a scratch. He'd been taken into custody immediately. Blood alcohol content triple the legal threshold at 8 in the morning. I called my parents from the medical center parking area. My hands trembled so violently I could barely dial. Mom picked up after 3 rings, celebration sounds in the background. "Mom," I managed to say. "They're gone. David, Lily, Mason, all of them gone." Silence. Then my father's voice, taking over the phone. "What are you saying, Claire?" I explained through choking sobs. The crash, the drunk driver, the morgue, the arrangements I had to make. His reply came steady and controlled. "Claire, it's Melissa's birthday today. We've had the venue reserved for half a year. We're staying here." But the true nightmare was only beginning. To grasp the full weight of my father's statement, you need to understand our family structure. Growing up, I was the dependable one, the daughter who never stirred trouble, never demanded too much. "Good daughters don't tally favors, Claire," my mother would repeat whenever I mentioned the imbalances. When I was 17, I surrendered my complete scholarship to Stanford, so Melissa could access my education fund for her European adventure. She needed to discover herself, my parents explained. She discovered wine bars and returned with nothing but social media posts and credit card bills. When Mom underwent hip replacement 5 years back, I used 3 months of leave without pay to be her caregiver. Melissa was too occupied with her new romance, the 3rd that year. I slept on a fold-out in Mom's den, organizing her prescriptions, preparing every meal, handling every medical appointment. The day Mom could walk independently again, Melissa arrived with bouquets and received all the praise for being such a caring daughter. At my wedding, Melissa revealed her first pregnancy during my reception. My partnership promotion was overshadowed by Melissa's separation saga. Every achievement in my existence became white noise to Melissa's continuous performance. David was the only person who recognized it. "They've conditioned you to vanish, sweetheart," he'd said after one particularly harsh family gathering where I'd spent 7 hours cooking only to have Melissa show up late with restaurant food because she'd forgotten my dinner plans. "But they're my family," I'd always counter. Family shouldn't make you feel invisible, he'd respond, embracing me tightly. Now David was gone. My children were gone. And my parents couldn't step away from Melissa's party to stand beside me through the most horrific day of my existence. Good daughters don't tally favors, but I'd finally begun calculating. We can't let her down, my father went on, as if I hadn't just informed him his grandchildren were dead. You understand how Melissa reacts when arrangements shift. In the background I heard my sister's tone. Is that Claire? Tell her she better not be calling with some emergency today. Robert, please, I pleaded. I need Mom. I can't face this by myself. You've always been strong, Claire. You'll handle it. We'll contact you tomorrow. The connection ended. I stared at my device, convinced I'd misunderstood. My hands still had Mason's favorite superhero bandages from where I'd scraped them stumbling in the hospital lot. My children were in a morgue, and my parents couldn't bother leaving a birthday celebration. I dialed again immediately. Mom answered this time. Mom, please. The funeral director needs answers. Her voice went soft, that tone she used when avoiding my father's irritation. Your dad's correct, honey. Melissa's been organizing this for months. All her guests are present. We can't simply walk out. My children are dead. I screamed into the phone. Multiple people in the lot turned toward me. Don't be theatrical, Claire. We'll assist you next week. The funeral can be postponed a few days, right? The funeral can be postponed. As if my 6-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter were calendar items that could be rescheduled. As if David's body wasn't waiting on a metal surface for someone who cherished him to say farewell. Her next statement would echo in my mind forever. It's your sister's birthday. We won't disappoint her. 20 minutes later, as I sat in my vehicle struggling to breathe, my phone rang again. Melissa. Her voice was harsh, accusatory. You've totally ruined the atmosphere. Mom's distressed, Dad's irritated, and my guests are wondering what's happening. Melissa, I said carefully. David is dead. Lily is dead. Mason is dead. I heard. That's awful, genuinely. But why did you have to wreck my special day with your crisis? Couldn't this have waited? Your crisis? As though I'd selected the timing. As though I'd requested that drunk driver to annihilate my family on her 35th birthday. Will you attend the funeral? I asked, my voice empty. When is it? Friday. Oh, I can't. James and I have theater tickets. They were incredibly expensive. The service was held at Grace Memorial Church. David's co-workers occupied one section. His aging parents, who'd traveled from across the country, sat front row. The other side, reserved for my family, remained completely empty. 3 small caskets. 1 desperate widow. 0 parents. 0 sister. The priest hesitated before beginning, glancing at the vacant seats, then at me. I nodded once. Start without them. The ceremony lasted 42 minutes. I held David's mother's hand on one side, his father's on the other. These people who'd lost their son and grandchildren showed up. My own parents, who'd lost nothing but pride, couldn't be bothered. At the burial I stood alone as they lowered my family into the ground. David's colleagues formed a protective circle around me, these near strangers offering more compassion than my own blood. After everyone departed, I remained. The funeral director approached cautiously. Mrs. Martinez, we need to discuss the arrangements. Your parents never returned our calls about the expenses. Send everything to me, I said. Flatly. I'll handle it all. That evening, I returned to an empty house filled with dinosaur toys and piano sheet music. On the kitchen table sat a card that had arrived that afternoon. From Melissa.ig. Inside, sorry for your loss. Hope you understand about Friday. Sending positive vibes. Positive vibes. My family was buried that morning and my sister sent positive vibes. I'd spent 38 years being the good daughter. The one who sacrificed. The one who understood. The one who never tallied favors. That night, I started keeping score. But what my family didn't realize was that David had been keeping score all along. 3 days after the burial, I met with David's attorney, Richard Chantout. He'd been David's college friend and had handled all our legal matters. The meeting was scheduled for his office downtown, but he suggested my home instead. There are things David wanted you to know, he said when he arrived carrying a leather folder. Things he made me promise to explain when the time came. We sat in the living room where Lily used to practice. Her music stand remained in the corner, frozen in time. Richard opened the folder. David updated his will 8 months ago. He didn't tell you because he didn't want to worry you. But he'd been concerned about your family's treatment of you for years. I stared at him, confused. The life insurance policy, Richard continued, was $5 million. But that's just one piece. David had been preparing for this possibility since Mason was born. He pulled out documents, spreading them across the coffee table. David established an irrevocable trust. The insurance funds it, but there are conditions. Conditions specifically designed around your family's behavior. My hands shook as I picked up the first document. If your parents or sister tried to claim any emotional distress or loss of relationship damages related to the accident, Richard explained, they would automatically disqualify themselves from any potential inheritance or family claims. David documented everything, every missed birthday, every forgotten milestone, every time they chose Melissa over you. He what? He hired a private investigator 3 years ago. Documented everything. Every birthday party they would miss for your kids but attended for Melissa's. Every holiday where you hosted but they arrived late or not at all. Every family emergency where you showed up but they didn't. Richard handed me a thick folder. Inside were photographs, receipts, timeline records. My parents at Melissa's daughter's birthday party, but missing Mason's. Them at Melissa's anniversary dinner but skipping our 10th anniversary celebration that same weekend. Years of evidence. Years of David quietly protecting me. But there's more, Richard said softly. The trust includes provisions for a foundation. David wanted you to create something meaningful from the tragedy if the worst happened. Something that would help other families while simultaneously highlighting what your family chose. I couldn't speak. The foundation must be named the Martinez Family Foundation. All charitable work must be publicized. And, this was important to David, your parents and sister are explicitly excluded from any board positions or volunteer roles. Forever. Why? I whispered. Because David knew that when they saw what you built from your pain, when they saw the recognition and respect you received, when they realized what they'd lost, not in money, but in relationship, that would hurt them more than any lawsuit you Ver could. Richard pulled out one final document. He left you a letter. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay. I'm sorry you're facing this pain. But I won't leave you unprotected. Your family has taken from you your entire life. Your scholarship. Your time. Your achievements. Your joy. I documented it all because I knew that one day you'd need proof that you weren't imagining it, that you weren't being dramatic. You're the strongest person I know, but strength shouldn't mean accepting mistreatment. The money isn't revenge. It's freedom. Freedom to build a life where you're valued. Freedom to create something beautiful from whatever tragedy took me from you. Use it to help others. Use it to show the world who you really are. And when your family finally sees it, when they understand what they lost, that recognition will be sweeter than any angry confrontation. Silent victory, my love. Let your success be so loud. They can't ignore it. I love you eternally. David, I read it 17 times that night. The next morning, I began planning the foundation. The Martinez Family Foundation launched 6 weeks after the funeral. Richard helped me structure it for maximum impact and visibility. Our mission, supporting families who'd lost loved ones to drunk driving accidents. We'd provide funeral assistance, counseling services, legal support, and educational programs. Every family we helped would know they were supported by a foundation created in memory of David, Lily, and Mason Martinez, and by a mother whose own family had abandoned her in her darkest hour. Our launch announcement went to every media outlet in the state. The local newspaper ran a full-page feature, Widow Whale creates $5 million foundation after family's tragic death, honors lost loved ones by helping others. The article detailed everything. The accident. The insurance policy. The foundation's mission. And yes, it mentioned that I'd attended the funeral alone while my immediate family celebrated a birthday. The reporter had asked why I'd buried them alone. Sometimes the family you're born with fails you, I'd answered. But the family you choose shows up. This foundation is my way of showing up for others who've been abandoned by those who should have cared most. That quote became the headline. Within 48 hours, the story went regional. Then national. My phone exploded with calls. Richard filtered everything. Media requests, interview invitations, donation inquiries, and calls from my family. My mother's voicemail: "Claire, honey, we saw the article. We had no idea you felt abandoned. Why didn't you tell us? Call us back. We can explain everything." My father's message: "This is inappropriate, Claire. You're making the family look bad. That article made it sound like we didn't care. Take down that website. We need to talk." Melissa's text: "You're seriously telling the world we skipped the funeral? We had commitments. This is character assassination. Take it down now." I responded to none of them. Instead, I held our foundation's first board meeting. The board included David's parents, two of David's former colleagues, a grief counselor, and a representative from Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Noticeably absent: anyone from my birth family. Our first initiative, I announced, will be the Martinez Family Scholarship Fund. We'll provide full college scholarships to children who've lost parents to drunk driving. The selection committee will prioritize students who've demonstrated resilience despite family abandonment. David's mother squeezed my hand. Our first event was a memorial 5K run. We expected maybe 100 participants. 700 people showed up. Local news covered it. The mayor attended. David's employer sponsored it. My parents stood across the street, watching but not participating. They hadn't been invited. After the run, a woman approached me, tears streaming down her face. "My husband was killed by a drunk driver 3 years ago," she said. "My family said I should get over it and move on. Seeing what you've built, knowing I'm not alone in being abandoned, it's healing I didn't know I needed. This became my purpose. Not revenge. Redemption." The foundation grew rapidly. Within 3 months, we'd helped 40 families with funeral costs. Within 6 months, we'd launched support groups in 5 cities. The media attention continued. Every article, every news segment, every interview mentioned that I'd started this foundation after being abandoned by my own family during my darkest hour. My parents' friends began asking questions. Their social circle slowly shrank as people realized what they'd done. Melissa lost her position as PTA president when parents discovered she'd skipped her niece and nephew's funeral for a party. My father's business connections started distancing themselves. Nobody wants to partner with someone who abandoned their daughter while she buried her children. My mother stopped attending her church. Too many awkward questions. The consequences weren't from my actions. They were from theirs. I simply refused to hide their choices anymore. 8 months after the accident, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered this time. "Claire, please. We're sorry. We made a terrible mistake. Your father? He's been having health issues. The stress from all this. The foundation is wonderful, truly, but do you have to keep mentioning us? People treat us differently now." "How did people treat me?" I asked calmly, when I buried my family alone. Silence. "I didn't mention you specifically in any interview, Mom. I simply stated facts. I attended the funeral alone. My immediate family chose to attend a birthday party instead. Those are truths, not attacks. But people assume correctly. You made a choice. I'm living with the consequences of your choice. Now you're living with them too. We want to make it right. We'll volunteer for the foundation. The foundation's bylaws explicitly prevent family members who weren't present during founding trauma from holding any official roles. It's in the charter. David made sure of it." "David?" Her voice rose. "He planned this? This is manipulation from beyond the grave." "No, Mom. This is protection from beyond the grave. David knew you'd do exactly this. You'd ignore my pain until it became socially costly, then you'd try to insert yourselves to save face. That's not fair." "You want to discuss fair? Let's talk about Lily's 8th birthday party that you missed because Melissa had a spa day. Let's discuss Mason's preschool graduation that you skipped because Melissa needed help picking furniture. Let's review the 10 years of my marriage where you attended one anniversary dinner, the one where Melissa was also present. We didn't realize, you didn't care to realize. There's a difference." I hung up. The foundation's first annual gala was scheduled for exactly 1 year after the accident. Richard suggested a smaller private event. I refused. David wanted visibility. I said, "We're making this the biggest event of the year." We rented the city's premier ballroom. Tickets were $500 per person, $5,000 per table. The proceeds would fund our expansion to 3 additional cities. We sold out in 2 weeks. The guest list included the governor, several state representatives, business leaders, and 75 families we'd helped throughout the year. My parents and Melissa weren't on the list. They tried to purchase tickets anyway. Richard's office sent a polite refusal. The gala is for foundation supporters and families we've served. Your request has been declined. Melissa posted on social media about being excluded from a family foundation. The comment section tore her apart. You skipped the funeral. You chose a party over grieving children. You don't deserve to be there. She deleted the post within 3 hours. The gala was magnificent. Lily would have loved the music. Mason would have been fascinated by the video presentation showing all the families we'd helped. David would have been proud. During my speech, I didn't mention my parents or Melissa by name. I didn't need to. 1 year ago, I stood alone at 3 graves. I said to the room. I learned that day that family isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. It's about choosing love over convenience. It's about being present when presence is what's needed most. Everyone in this room tonight showed up. For your own loved ones. For strangers. Who needed help. For a cause bigger than yourselves. You are my family now. And together, we've created something that honors those who can't be here while helping those who need it most. Standing ovation. Not for me. For David, Lily, and Mason. For what we'd built from ashes. Outside the venue I saw them. My parents and Melissa standing behind the ropes, watching through the windows like characters from a novel. They dressed up. Brought gifts. Prepared speeches of reconciliation I'd later learn. That they hadn't been invited to this table. They'd surrendered that seat a year ago. I didn't acknowledge them. I simply walked back inside to the family I'd chosen, the family who'd chosen me. The foundation's success continued to accelerate. By the 18-month mark, we'd expanded to 12 states. We'd helped over 2,000 families. We'd established scholarship programs, support groups, advocacy initiatives, and educational campaigns. The media called me a pillar of resilience. Business magazines featured my leadership. Grief counseling organizations requested my participation. My parents watched from the sidelines as I built an empire of purpose, from the rubble of their abandonment. Melissa reached out through Richard's office, requesting a meeting. I declined. She sent a letter to my home. Richard had it returned unopened. She showed up at my house. I called security. She tried cornering me at a foundation event. David's father physically blocked her path. You've made your point, she'd screamed across the venue. You've punished us enough. I'd looked at her calmly. I haven't punished you at all, Melissa. I've simply stopped protecting you from the consequences of your choices. There's a difference. At the 2-year anniversary, I established the Martinez Children's Wing at the Children's Hospital. A space dedicated to supporting kids who'd lost parents. Lily's piano sat in the music therapy room. Mason's favorite dinosaur books filled the library. The dedication ceremony made national news. My parents sent flowers. Anonymous, but I recognized my mother's handwriting on the card. I donated them to a nursing home. Not from cruelty. From closure. Some relationships don't heal. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward rather than providing passage back. The private investigator David had hired sent me regular updates. I hadn't requested them, but David's instructions had been clear. Keep Claire informed. My parents had downsized from their large home to a modest condo. The country club membership was terminated. Many of their social connections had evaporated. Melissa and James had divorced. She was working 2 jobs, raising her daughter alone. The financial strain had broken them. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of something for Melissa's child. Children were innocent. I established an anonymous education fund for the baby. $50,000, accessible only for schooling, only after 18. The documents went through Richard's office with strict anonymity instructions until the child's 18th birthday. Why? Richard asked. After everything they did. Because Lily and Mason would want their cousin to have opportunities. Because David always said the best revenge is grace. Because I refused to let their cruelty transform who I am. The foundation's 2nd annual gala was attended by even more dignitaries. My parents and Melissa observed from outside again, unable to afford admission, unwelcome even if they could. The greatest revenge is living fully and helping others do the same. 2 years after the crash, I visited their graves with achievements to share. The foundation's report showing 2,000 families assisted. Photographs from children whose lives we'd changed. Letters from parents who'd found hope in their darkest hours. "We did it, David," I whispered to his marker. "Your plan worked perfectly." I told Lily about the music program, how a little girl named Sophie had performed her first recital using the piano we donated. I told Mason about the library, how his dinosaur books had helped a boy named Ethan smile for the first time after losing his mother. "Your daddy was brilliant," I said, arranging fresh flowers. "He knew exactly what would happen. He protected us even after leaving." The cemetery was peaceful, just me and them, the way it had been at the service. But now the solitude felt different. Chosen rather than forced. I'd purchased a smaller home 3 blocks from the cemetery. Every morning I walked here with coffee, sharing the foundation's work with them. The old house had sold for $550,000. Every penny went to the foundation. My support group for grieving parents met weekly in our foundation building. We'd created a community of understanding, of shared pain transformed into collective strength. These strangers had become my family in ways blood never could. "Your Aunt Melissa had her baby," I told them. "A little girl named Sophia Dottie. She'll have an education fund waiting, though your grandparents will never know it's from us." A letter had arrived from Melissa that morning, forwarded through Richard's office. 6 pages of apologies and explanations. I read it once and filed it away. Some bridges once burned should remain that way, but their light can still guide others forward. Melissa's letter was water-stained, ink smudged in places from what appeared to be tears. "Claire, I know I have no right to write this. I was horrible. Unforgivable. I see that now. Sophia looks like Lily sometimes, and it breaks my heart that she'll never know her cousins. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what we took from you. Not the money, the moments, the support, the love you deserved when your world ended. I'm sorry. I'm so desperately sorry." I read it twice, then wrote my response on foundation letterhead. "Melissa, I received your letter. Thank you for your honesty. I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying anger is too heavy when you're already carrying grief. However, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some wounds cut too deep to heal with words. You chose a birthday party over my children's funeral. That choice defined our relationship permanently. I wish you well with Sophia. She's innocent in all of this. Love her the way you couldn't love Lily and Mason. Be present for her in ways you weren't for them. This is the last communication between us. Please respect this boundary. Claire." I included a photograph of Lily and Mason from their last Christmas, their faces bright with joy. On the back I wrote, "For Sophia, so she knows they existed." Richard mailed it that afternoon. "No return communication will be accepted," he assured me. That evening, I updated the foundation's board with our new policy. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. 2 years have passed since the accident. The Martinez Family Foundation has helped over 2,000 families. We've expanded nationally with chapters in 12 states. The children we've helped have started calling themselves Martinez Warriors. Lily would have loved that. I have learned that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. My real family now includes David's parents, who video call every Sunday to hear about the foundation's work, and Mrs. Patterson from the neighborhood who still brings meals, but now stays to share them with me. David's former colleagues who never missed a foundation meeting. The private investigator David hired sent me one final report. My parents sold their house and moved to a small apartment. Melissa and James divorced after the financial pressure broke them. She's raising Sophia alone, working 2 jobs. The education fund I established continues to grow, waiting for a little girl who will someday have chances her mother denied herself through cruelty. Some people are lessons, not blessings. My parents taught me that love shouldn't come with conditions. Melissa taught me that shared DNA doesn't guarantee loyalty. Their abandonment taught me that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. But David, Lily, and Mason, they taught me that real love transcends death. That preparation is an act of love. That legacy isn't about money. It's about impact. Every morning I visit their graves. Every evening I read applications from families needing help. In between, I live. Not just survive, live. Because that's what they would want. What boundaries have you set with toxic family? Your story might help someone else find their strength. Share it below. Remember, you deserve to be valued, respected, and prioritized. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but necessary journey. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about resilience and setting healthy boundaries. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose peace over toxic relationships, even with family. Comment below with your own experiences of setting boundaries. Your courage might inspire someone else to reclaim their life. Remember, you deserve to be valued, respected, and prioritized. Blood doesn't obligate you to accept disrespect. Until next time, take care of yourselves and honor your worth.